Blake McCoy in the Fox 5 newsroom. We are about to hear from Maryland Governor Larry Hogan about that state's coronavirus response amid reports that his wife, who's Korean American, was able to secure 500,000 tests for Maryland. Let's listen.
Here in Maryland, we've been doing everything in our power to acquire more tests from the federal government. Unfortunately, we have also had to compete with every state in America in our attempts to procure tests from every domestic producer in the U.S. and from sources around the globe. As I said last week, adequate testing is one of the 4 critical building blocks of our Maryland Strong roadmap to recovery. Over the past 30 days, Maryland has successfully expanded our testing capability by over 5,000%, and we have now completed over 71,000 tests to date. Last week, we secured 40,000 additional tests, and we invested $2.5 million to help the University of Maryland Baltimore lab use cutting-edge robotics to build up their capacity in order to handle up to 20,000 tests per day. All of that progress to date has been important, but this weekend we took an exponential, game-changing step forward on our large-scale testing initiative. We've been quietly working for a number of weeks on a confidential project called Operation Enduring Friendship. And on Saturday, the First Lady and I stood on the tarmac at BWI Airport to welcome the first ever Korean Air passenger plane, a Boeing 777, which had no passengers, but which was carrying a very important payload of lab-gun COVID-19 PCR test kits from a South Korean company called Lab Genomics, which will now give Maryland the capability of performing 500,000 coronavirus tests. The 500,000 test capacity, which we have just acquired, is equal to the total amount of testing which has been completed by 4 of the top 5 states in America combined. Operation Enduring Friendship was launched on Saturday, March 28th, when I asked my wife, Yumi, to join me on a call with Korea's ambassador to the United States, Lee Soo-hyuk. We spoke of the special relationship between Maryland and the Republic of Korea, and we made a personal plea in Korean asking for their assistance. That call set in motion 22 straight days of vetting, testing, negotiations, and protocols between our scientists and doctors, 8 Maryland state government agencies, and our counterparts in Korea. We convened countless calls nearly every night. Sometimes it seemed like all night, working through language barriers and a 13-hour time difference. And at the last minute, we then navigated clearances across multiple U.S. agencies, including the FDA, the USDA, and Customs and Border Patrol, in order to complete this incredible mission for the people of Maryland. I want to sincerely thank our Korean partners for assisting us in our fight against this common hidden enemy. 감사합니다. Each part of this international collaboration was unprecedented, from identifying and vetting the Korean testing company and getting the scientists in our labs to work through all of the technical details with the teams in Korea, to the complexities of the international procurement contracts and processes, to figuring out intricate logistics solutions, like arranging the first ever Korean Air flight from Korea to land at BWI. It really was an amazing team effort. And I want to personally thank President Moon Jae-in, Prime Minister Chung, Ambassador Lee, and Prime Minister Hong, the Director for Public Diplomacy at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who is here representing the Republic of Korea today and who was there with us at BWI on Saturday. I also want to thank Lab Genomics, who developed and produced the tests, Samsung SDS for the logistical support, Korea Air for this very special charter flight, the Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency, John S. Connor Global Logistics, and our entire Operation Enduring Friendship team here in Maryland, especially Roy McGrath, Director of the MES, who spearheaded our efforts, along with Secretary Ellington Churchill and the Department of General Services, Deputy Secretary Fran Phillips and the Maryland Department of Health, Secretary Greg Slater and the Maryland Department of Transportation, Ricky Smith and the Maryland Aviation Administration, Major General Tim Gowan of the Maryland National Guard, Colonel Jerry Jones and the Maryland State Police, Budget Secretary David Brinkley in the Department of Budget and Management. And I want to give a special thanks to Sue Koo from the Governor's Office of Community Initiatives, who stayed awake many nights assisting us with communications and who served as our lead translator throughout this entire process. I'd also like to thank our federal partners here in the U.S. for their cooperation. But most importantly, I want to thank Maryland's First Lady, my wife Yumi. She truly is a champion of this Operation Enduring Freedom. You may know her as the first Asian First Lady of Maryland, but she's also the very first Korean American First Lady of any state in the history of the United States. And it's why we have, and we're so proud to have, such a special bond with South Korea. In February, the First Lady and I worked with Ambassador Lee to arrange for a reception at the ambassador's residence in Washington during the NGA annual winter meeting. It was the first time that America's governors had all gathered together at the Korean ambassador's residence. And it was a special surprise for us when President Moon appeared on a video screen to recognize our special partnership. And he said he was so proud of my wife, and he said that that they considered me as a Hanguk Sai, which means a son-in-law to the Korean people. And I considered it quite an honor for him to say that night, but I had no idea just how much that would truly come to mean these 2 very long months later. Later this week, we will be introducing our Maryland Strong Roadmap to Recovery. This recovery plan has 4 building blocks, including a robust contact tracing operation, increasing our supply of PPE, and increasing our hospital surge capacity. And our team has been making significant progress on each and every one of these criteria. But the most critical part of both our recovery plan for Maryland and the reopening guidelines that the President introduced on Thursday is the capability to do widespread testing. The incredible success of Operation Enduring Friendship has not only put us on track to achieve that goal, but it literally will help save the lives of thousands of Marylanders. This year marks the 70th anniversary of the Korean War. And my wife often says that she would not be here if it were not for the dedication and the sacrifice of the brave Americans who fought for the freedom of South Korea. And she and President Moon have both talked about the incredible debt of gratitude that South Korea feels toward the American people. Let me just say that after Operation Enduring Friendship, the state of Maryland owes an incredible debt of gratitude to the people of South Korea. Kamsahamnida. As Maryland begins its reopening and recovery, Marylanders should feel confident knowing that we have done everything in our power, gone to every length, and used every tool and every resource at our disposal to defeat this deadly virus. May God bless the great state of Maryland, the Republic of Korea, and the United States of America. With that, I'd be happy to take a few questions. Yes. Well, so this is the first step. There's still a whole lot of work to be done, but it puts us in a tremendous position. The health department can probably talk in greater detail about that, but it sets us up to be able to spread these out across the state, work with different labs, and to utilize them in many different ways. This is still a part of our testing process. We have many different tests that we're working on, but it'll enable us to identify those who are sick and those who have the virus, so it can help us isolate and do our contact tracing and keep people safe all across the state and help us with our reopening.
When do you think, when will they start making their way out?
We're going to start right away, but it's going to take a while to go through all of those and ramp it up. But immediately is when it's going to start. We've already done all the protocols and done the testing, and the labs have been working together. So this is a long-term testing strategy, and this capability is going to take a while, and it's going to help us continue for many months to come. But we're going to start right away.
Governor, how much does these tests cost? Will this flatten the curve, demolish the curve, and how quick is the turnaround on it?
Well, we're very pleased that we have been flattening the curve. It's a little bit why we're behind, a couple weeks behind everybody else, and why our numbers aren't as high as other places. But when you flatten the curve, you also lengthen the time frame. So it's going to take a while, but I don't know if it's going to demolish the curve, but it certainly is going to enable us to open in a much safer way and to help us to protect a lot of folks. I believe the cost is about $9 million for these tests. As you know, we announced about a week ago that we potentially might lose $2.8 billion by July 1st in revenue. So $9 million to try to, keep hundreds of thousands of people safe and to protect thousands of lives and to get our economy back on track seems like a pretty worthwhile investment.
Governor, do these tests have everything that's needed right away, or do you still need Q-tips and things like that?
Well, it's a great question. They don't have everything that's needed. It's a very complex set of things that goes into the testing. So you need the lab capability, you need the swabs, you need the reagents, and they all have to kind of work together. As I understand it, there's about 9 steps involved in the process. A couple of these steps we've contracted with and have received from the 2 companies in Korea. Other things we have acquired and or are acquiring from the federal government and from other sources here in the U.S., but it's going to take a while to ramp up all of the things that we need to utilize all of the tests. Sorry. No, I think that the federal government, President Trump had talked with President Moon about a federal supply, but I don't think, to my knowledge, they were not negotiating with any other states. Well, we had a great conversation, I think Friday with Governor Northam and Mayor Bowser. We're all working together. All of our numbers, we're watching and hoping to see that downward trend. We're not quite there yet, but we're all going to work together. When we start to see the numbers go down, when we've got all those other things ready, then we're all anxious to get our economies opened up as soon as we possibly can, and if we can do it in a safe way. And we're going to do so in cooperation with our neighbors. It's possible. It's one of the things that we'll be discussing later in the week. You know, it's if you look at you could possibly do things in different regions or different parts of the state, but what we don't want is to have one place open, everybody rushes over there and then infects that county. So there's a lot of thought that goes into that. Certain areas don't have as bad of an infection rate. It may be because they haven't done enough testing, or you know, what we don't want is to have the neighbor next door come over. If you open up everything, then they're going to be flooded with more infected folks. So as I pointed out, this 500,000 tests is more than the 4 of the top 5 states in America have done so far in the entire COVID-19 crisis. So it's a huge step in the right direction. It's not the end of it, though. We're still searching. I mean, we got another 40,000 tests last week. We're working on multiple different kinds of tests for different reasons.